Some people have no friends, and they're completely at peace. Others have no friends, and it quietly hurts every day. Same situation, completely different experience. So what actually causes this? Because having no friends isn't as simple as people think. And in most cases, it didn't happen overnight. It's not one decision. It's a pattern. Built slowly, over time. Through moments you barely noticed when they happened, but felt later. There's a certain kind of loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It hides behind routines, behind productivity, behind the phrase, "I'm just busy lately." You still go to work. You still function. You still smile when needed. But deep down, there's something missing. Not just people, but connection. Because the real pain isn't being alone. It's feeling like no one truly knows you. Like if something amazing happened, or something terrible, you wouldn't know who to tell. And even if you did, you're not sure anyone would understand. And over time, that silence starts to change you. Not all at once, but gradually, the way you think, the way you see yourself, the way you move through the world. You become quieter, more careful, more distant, even when you don't mean to be. But here's what most people get wrong. People don't just wake up one day and decide to have no friends. It usually happens slowly, through small moments. Moments that seem insignificant at first. You open up, and someone laughs. You trust someone, and they break it. You try to connect, and feel misunderstood. You show up, and realize no one really sees you. And maybe the first few times, you try again. You give people another chance. You tell yourself it's just bad luck. But over time, something shifts. And after enough of these moments, your brain starts learning something. A quiet conclusion forms. It's safer not to try. So you stop reaching out. You stop initiating. You stop putting yourself in situations where rejection is possible. And eventually, you start telling yourself you prefer being alone, even if part of you isn't sure that's true. But not everyone ends up here for the same reason. There are actually two very different paths, and understanding this changes everything. Because from the outside, they look identical, but internally, they couldn't be more different. One feels like freedom, the other feels like something quietly missing. The first path is chosen solitude. These are people who could have friends, but choose not to, because they refuse to fake who they are just to belong. They won't laugh at things they don't find funny. They won't pretend to care about conversations that feel empty. They won't shrink their personality just to fit into a group. And over time, they realize something. Most social environments aren't built for depth. They're built for performance, for surface-level connection, for fitting in, not being real. So instead, they walk away. They choose peace over popularity, authenticity over acceptance. And for them, being alone doesn't feel like loss. It feels like relief, like finally being able to breathe, like finally being themselves without adjusting, because they'd rather have no one than the wrong ones. But then there's the second path. And this one feels very different. This is learned disconnection, where being alone isn't really a choice. It's something that slowly happened to you. After enough rejection, enough disappointment, enough emotional exhaustion, your brain adapts. It starts protecting you by lowering expectations, by avoiding vulnerability, by telling you, it's better this way. You stop expecting people to understand you. You stop believing connection will work. You stop imagining friendships that feel safe. Psychologists sometimes call this learned helplessness, but socially. You tried. It didn't work. So your brain stops trying, not because you don't want connection, but because connection started to feel unsafe. And this is where a cycle begins, a quiet loop that keeps reinforcing itself. It starts with rejection, which leads to withdrawal. Then comes hyper-awareness. You start overanalyzing everything, every message, every tone, every pause in a conversation. You begin to read into things that may not even be there. You assume meaning where there might be none. Then comes hesitation. You hold back. You say less, you show less. People sense that distance, and they pull away. Not because they dislike you, but because they feel the gap. And just like that, you end up exactly where you started, alone. Not because you can't connect, but because your mind is trying to protect you from the risk of it. And here's the part most people don't realize. Loneliness isn't just emotional, it's biological. When you go too long without meaningful connection, your brain starts interpreting it as a threat, because evolutionarily, being alone meant danger. The same regions that process physical pain light up. That's why loneliness can feel heavy, almost physical. Your sleep changes, your focus drops, your thoughts get louder, you start replaying conversations, reanalyzing memories, questioning things that already happened, living more in your head than in your life. Because your brain is scanning, trying to make sense of what's missing, trying to protect you from being hurt again. But here's the paradox. The people who have no friends are often the ones who understand connection the most. They think about it deeply. They analyze it. They notice things others miss. They value sincerity. They crave conversations that actually mean something. They don't want surface-level interaction. They want something real, but at the same time, they fear vulnerability because they know the cost of opening up to the wrong person. So they live in this contradiction, wanting connection, but not at the cost of themselves. And that's why this situation is so misunderstood, because from the outside, it looks the same, but internally, it's completely different. Some people are alone and at peace. Others are alone and hurting. One is independence. The other is isolation. And the difference isn't how many people you have. It's how you feel about it. And more importantly, why you got there in the first place. So the real question isn't, why do you have no friends? The real question is this where you want to be? Because if it is, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it isn't, then it's not permanent, and it doesn't have to stay this way. Connection isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something that can come back. Slowly, through small moments. A conversation, a shared experience, a moment of honesty. It doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require becoming someone else. It just requires presence. And maybe that starts with something simple. Replying instead of overthinking. Showing up instead of assuming the worst. Letting yourself be seen just a little. Letting things be imperfect. Because the right people don't need a perfect version of you. They just need the real one. At the end of the day, having no friends doesn't mean you're broken. It usually means you've been adapting, protecting yourself, trying to make sense of your experiences. But your story isn't over. This isn't who you are, it's just where you are. And that can change.